So you hear a lot about why the U.S. is interested in Venezuela, right? The official story usually revolves around politics or maybe a humanitarian crisis. But what if the real story, the one that really drives everything, is hiding in plain sight? What if it's all about a hidden dependency that changes how we think about global energy? Let's get into it.
Yeah, this is the big question we're going to dig into. Once you push past all the headlines, what is the real reason for America's intense focus on this one country in South America?
Okay, so the official line, the one you'll hear from politicians, is that it's all about the flow of illegal drugs. It gets framed as a huge national security threat. And look, that's a serious issue, for sure. But you gotta wonder, is that really the whole story? Because what if all of that is just noise? What if the real prize, the one strategic asset that truly matters, is something black, thick, and buried deep in the ground? What if it's always been about oil?
Okay, but hold on a second. That probably sounds completely backwards, right? I mean, the US has had this unbelievable energy revolution. It's the #1 oil producer on the planet. So why in the world would it need a single drop of oil from Venezuela? This is where things get really interesting.
Let's hop in a time machine for a sec, back to 2005. If you looked at global oil production then, the US, Saudi Arabia, and Venezuela were all heavyweights. They were all kind of playing in the same league. America was a giant, but so were they. All right, now let's jump back to today. And wow, look at this chart. American production has just gone through the absolute roof, all thanks to the shale boom. It's totally dwarfing Saudi Arabia now. And Venezuela, its production has just completely cratered. It's barely even a player anymore. So the question remains, why should the US even care?
Well, the answer, and this is the key to everything, lies in a simple fact that almost everyone misses. We think of a barrel of oil as just a barrel of oil, but that is not true at all. The type of oil you have changes everything.
See, one of the main ways we categorize crude oil is by its density, and that's really just a fancy way of saying, how thick is it? Is it runny or is it goopy? This one little detail has massive consequences for the entire world. So on one end, you've got light crude. The best way to think about this is like a smoothie. It's thin, it's low density, and it flows really easily. It's the easy stuff to work with. Then there's medium crude. This is pretty much what pops into your head when you think of oil, right? That classic black liquid. It's not too thick, not too thin. It's kind of the global gold standard.
And then you get to the other extreme, heavy crude. And this stuff, it's basically gloop. It's super thick and viscous, almost like molasses or tar. It's way harder to get out of the ground and much tougher to process.
So if you look at what the world produces, most of it is that standard, medium stuff. But see that smaller slice, the heavy gloop? It might not look like much, but it is absolutely critical to the global energy puzzle, especially for one country in particular. And that right there brings us to the absolute heart of the problem for the United States. It's this massive, hidden mismatch between the oil America makes and the industrial equipment it has to actually use that oil. So here's the first half of the puzzle. That incredible American oil boom we just saw, the whole fracking and shale revolution, well, it produces pretty much all light crude. Remember, the smoothie stuff. But this is the kicker. The enormous, incredibly expensive network of American oil refineries, especially those huge ones on the Gulf Coast, they weren't built for that light stuff. They were built and fine-tuned over many, many years to handle one thing: heavy crude, the gloop. And this right here is the great mismatch. It's so simple but so important. The US is swimming in light, smoothie oil, but its huge industrial engine is built to run on the heavy, gloopy kind. You can't just pour the wrong type of oil into these highly specialized refineries. It just doesn't work that way.
So what do? What's the fix for this huge problem? Well, here's the irony. Even as the world's #1 oil producer, the US has to go shopping on the world market. It has to import huge amounts of the specific heavy crude that its own refineries were built for.
And just look at how this has completely changed things. In the past, only about 12% of the oil the US imported was heavy crude. Today, that number has exploded to almost 70%. Let me put it this way. The American economy needs gas, and to make that gas efficiently, US refineries are absolutely starving for heavy oil.
Okay, so where on earth do you even get this valuable gloop? Well, the list of countries with a lot of it is actually really short. The big ones you need to know are Canada, Venezuela, and yep, Russia. Those are the key players with big reserves of the stuff US refineries need. So how has the U.S. dealt with this? Well, this chart tells the story. As Venezuela's own production fell apart and sanctions kicked in, its shipments to the U.S. dropped to almost nothing. So who stepped in to fill that massive void? Our neighbor to the north, Canada. Their share of U.S. imports skyrocketed from 15% to over 60%.
But this is where the story takes its final, most important turn. Because even with its production in shambles, Venezuela is sitting on something that changes the entire game. It's a prize that has the power to shape geopolitics for decades to come. And here it is, the knockout punch. This chart isn't showing production, what's coming out of the ground now. This shows proven reserves, what's still in the ground. And look who's number one. It's not Saudi Arabia, it is Venezuela, by a mile. They're sitting on the largest proven oil reserves on the entire planet. And here's the final piece that makes it all click into place. Not only does Venezuela have more oil than anybody else, but nearly all of it is that specific, heavy, gloopy type. It's the exact kind of crude that the massive U.S. refining system was built for. I mean, it's a perfect match.
So that leaves us with one last, really big question. What happens when the world's biggest energy consumer has a very specific need, and its politically troubled neighbor just happens to be sitting on the world's largest supply of exactly that thing? When you see it like that, all the headlines and political tension, well, they start to make a whole lot more sense, don't they?